One in five prisoners in the U.S. have had COVID now. That's 1,700 dead. One in every five state and federal prisoners in the United States has tested positive for coronavirus at a rate more than 4 times as high as the general population. In some states, that's more than half the prisoners that have been infected, according to data collected by the Associated Press and the Marshall Project. At least 275,000 prisoners have been infected. More than 1,700 have died. No signs of slowing, because the new cases in prisons this week reached their highest level since testing began in the spring, far outstripping the previous peaks in April and August. As the virus spreads largely unchecked behind the bars, prisoners can't social distance and are dependent on the state for their safety and well-being. So this story continues on with more of a personal stories, like of Dante Westmoreland, who's 26, was recently released from Lansing Correctional Facility in Kansas, where he caught the virus while serving time on a marijuana charge. People are actually dying in front of him, and he said it was the scariest sight he'd ever seen. So it's just important to see that these are real people. Like we did a story last week that had somebody who just got had their sentence commuted by the state. It's important to see these as actual people. There's one in five of the people who are incarcerated, and they cannot get away from each other because of the way that the prisons in our country work. I think it's extremely relevant to talk about how we might need to be vaccinating them as well as a higher
So
priority. But we
yeah, actually, it's interesting you say that because the American Medical Association has actually advocated for them to be in the first tier. And I think in a lot of places they actually are because of the risk. And actually, the CDC changed their guidelines a while back about close contacts. And, previously they had said close contacts are anyone who's less than 6 feet away for consecutive 15 minutes. In North Carolina, we had always been considering it to be a cumulative 15 minutes. But the CDC changed it to cumulative based on an outbreak in a prison because they had a guard who had had limited contact multiple times and infected people. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge problem. And there's been a lot of pushes to, release people and find alternate, sort of housing and things for them to transition back. But yeah, they should definitely be vaccinated early.
Yeah, I got caught up in a incident a while back ago, way, way long ago when I was young and I was a knuckleheaded hoodlum or whatever it was. And I was locked up for 3 days, right? And then almost 3 days, 2.5 days or whatever it was, right? The environment, I don't know if it's anywhere how like it was then or whatever, but there were like 30 people in one cell. Like it was a big cell and it was like 30 people. We were down in Central Bookings. And people laying on the floor and so on and so forth. I don't know what kind of precautions they're doing, but I could not imagine being in a situation like that and with COVID going on. And if it's anything like that now, I mean, I would hope. I mean, because I'm assuming they're still arresting people. I don't see as many, which is interesting. Uh, Even in Jersey, like out here in Newark, I don't see as many arrests being done as they used to. I know in New York, I see a lot of cop cars parked at stations, and I don't see too many, police chase, not chases, but like them arresting people in the street like they used to. So maybe they're refraining from some of the stuff. Plus, they're also talking about a lot of the financing that with the defund the police stuff. So who knows why they're doing their actions or whatever it is. But it seems like there are less arrests and more crimes being committed. So maybe the prisons aren't as populated, but I can't tell you from an outside um, perspective. But it was bad, man. Like I came home afterwards and I felt sick because of the thing. I didn't want to eat the food there and everything else. So I'm sure people go in there stressed out. They don't want to eat. They don't want to do this. They don't want to touch anything because it's disgusting. You got all these people there, from God knows how many different walks of life, crazy people, homeless people. I mean, nothing against homeless and crazy people, but you don't know what they've been through prior to that. You don't know, what kind of diseases or sicknesses they might be bringing into the prison prior to that. And you're in an environment with 30 people or so in a jail cell, I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's still like that, but that I would not want to be in a situation like that with COVID. It's crazy. Go ahead.
Well, this just tells you about criminal justice reform because I've been in the hole before too. So the hole in New York is the Manhattan jails, the first booking for Manhattan. So basically, that was what the condition there was, and I understand you're caveating the issue, but yes, unfortunately, I saw two bed bugs crawl off the homeless person that they arrest instead of bringing to a facility. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about defund the police. We're really talking about reallocating the entire resources. So it's almost like all of these things are intersecting right now in the prison system. And criminal justice reform actually is incredibly important to talk about now because this is it's a showing right now. The second person to be federally executed by the Trump administration right now has COVID. So they're trying to go through proceedings right now to block his trial, block his date of execution until basically right after Biden is in office, and which is it's a
So
fantastic way to get. Please, April. It's ridiculous. It's like
no, I'm sorry. I just was going to say it's so infuriating. And I was reading an article today about there was an 18-year-old college student. You guys probably read this, that went to the Cayman Islands for her boyfriend's like jet ski competition or whatever it was, and she agreed ahead of time that she would test before she got there, test when she got there, and then quarantine before she went out into the public. And she apparently decided not to do that, and she like took off the tracking bracelet that they were using to monitor to make sure that she completed quarantine first, and she was out in public for hours without a mask and all of the things. And she's been charged, and her original sentence actually was amended to include like 4 months in jail there. And of course, like her grandma has appealed to President Trump or whatever, saying it's not fair. She should basically be released and returned to the United States. But you read that and you're just, it's just infuriating to think that we have people like that who are just flagrantly violating laws because they feel like the rules don't apply to them. And because she's a young, white, conventionally attractive American girl, chances are she may actually get some relief from her petition. And then we have all of these people in our country who are incarcerated for years for nonviolent offenses like marijuana possession, who are at risk. And nobody, I mean, yes, there are lots of people who are advocating for them, but like those are not the stories that we hear about. You know what I mean? You hear about this girl and like, oh, she needs justice. Well, no, she really doesn't.
yeah,
You know?
Unbelievable.
yeah,
I read a story the other day about, because I do photography or whatever, so I was reading up on some photography stuff. This lady who was a photographer went to a wedding, and the bride was like, "Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you coming here and everything." And she was like, "No problem. It's not a problem." It's like, after, and then she was like something like, what was it? She said, after hearing, what happened, she's like, "What do you mean?" Because she obviously didn't tell the photographer. Oh yeah, my husband has COVID or whatever it is, and contracted. That's the word I was looking for. Contracted COVID, and he doesn't have any symptoms, so everything's okay. This is what she said, right? So the photographer's like, what? I'm like, I didn't know this, that, and whatever. So obviously they're having an event, and there's like, yeah, but she's like, you should have told me this. I would have never done this. And she's like, yeah, but it's my wedding. The whole mentality of the entitlement and everything else, like this, that the priorities in this country are screwed up. And obviously, like with the jail system, it's just yet another sign of neglect of humanity. They're not doing the right things for the people in this country. They're not giving them stimulus. They're not helping the people in jails. They're not giving them, all the stuff that all this corporatist like capitalism and whatever environment, the way the politicians think and lobbyists, I'm throwing all these names because it's all related, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Like their mentality is make money, keep it going, keep the economy going. That's what makes it strong. It's not the people, and it's like in reality, it's the people. They've
I'm going to
proven.
throw the screwball in there. The thing is that I want to persuade people right now that those people in the prisons matter.
Yep.
Like that
Yeah.
it's not necessarily just the negative action that you did. You don't
Yep.
deserve to be punished in such a way that you can't have legitimate health care and health services. And I if it's a pandemic, they should be helped to be social distance, which I know for a fact right now in Philadelphia, for instance, they've stopped all transfers between sorry about this, jails, because they want to make sure that there's as little transmission as possible.
Yep.
So everything is being slowed down in that kind of community of working in law. So that's what I want people to realize, that these are real people that deserve rights as well. Just because they have committed a crime does not mean that they don't deserve as much rights as we do.
A lot of them might be innocent. They're going in an environment for like little things. They're either innocent or they go in there for like a silly charge, like forgetting to make a payment on their tickets or whatever it is, and they're getting arrested for that. God knows what it is that they're going in for, but either or, it's still a human life.
Kids in the wrong school district.
Yep.
Yes.
There was that mom that was like put in jail because she used a fake address for her or somebody else's address to get her kid into a better school, right? I mean, yes, like our criminal justice system is just, we really just need to start from scratch, because what we're doing now is not even remotely working for anyone. It's not rehabilitating anybody. It's not providing support to people that need it. And we're just locking people up instead of actually helping, like you said. We need more social workers and more resources for homeless people. And instead of criminalizing all of these things, we should be finding ways to stop the people doing the things from needing to do them.
Yep. It's sinful, man. This whole thing is sinful. The fact that these people are all religious people, or at least they claim to be, we're doing the best for everybody. This is the greater good. I'm like, no, it's not, man. You're not doing the things for the greater good. You're not doing it in a sense of like God's watching over your shoulder and you're doing the right thing. No, you're not. Because if you were, people would be in positions where they're surviving, and instead, like, they're talking about double dipper sessions coming next year. You know what I mean? And that's all because of the decisions they made this year. But they're
still going to blame Biden for it, right?
Of course.
It's going to be Biden's fault for the recession when it happens.
Of course.
Yep. That's actually his biggest problem of being the next president, was going to be that there's going to be some recession of some sort that comes after this. Unless there's a buying frenzy and then we've somehow come out of a deficit government, which is fine. Like, we have to understand that we need to pay into a deficit government for a while to deal with a problem that we had as a world. The whole world is dealing with this.